Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars has perhaps the most diverse and unique cast of enemies in the entire Mario series. No matter where you go, you'll run into some new foes that look completely foreign to the Mario world, long forgotten by Nintendo and only reappearing in the remake. I'll be going over the bizarre and forgotten enemies from this classic game. Let's begin with a pair of variant enemies you meet very early on, the Terrapin and Chaindelier. When I say variant enemies, I mean slightly different versions of existing bad guys. The Terrapin is basically an armored Koopa Troopa, while the Chaindelier is a Chain Chomp used as, yeah, you guessed it, a chandelier. I just imagine Nintendo HQ having something like this, just to tie the room together. There's also Spikies, which technically aren't variants, but definitely look like prototypical Bowser minions. Toss these guys into any Bowser castle, and they'd probably fit right in. Makes you wonder why Nintendo didn't make the Spiky into a recurring minion. It has the spiky charm of a Spiny, but with a tougher vibe. The first truly unique enemy we encounter is the Frogog. According to the game, Frogogs dislike hanging out with other Frogogs, because if they do and someone calls out Frogog, it's hard to tell who they mean. Honestly, what more do you need? These guys probably wouldn't fit in most Mario games. I mean, sure, frogs show up in the frog suit in Mario 3 or the capturable frogs in Odyssey, but they're usually just normal frogs. Anthropomorphic frogs, though? I don't know. Then again, we had normal humans next to Mario in New Donk City, so honestly, who knows? Along Bandit's Way, where you find the Frogogs, you'll also meet canines. These enemies are pretty easy to defeat, and they feel like something that could be in a classic Mario game. Like, they give off Super Mario Bros. 2 vibes. I'm not the only one who feels that way. Quick side note, I'm not covering bosses in this video, just like in my Paper Mario video, which you should totally check out. I'll be doing a separate deep dive into the bizarre and one-off Mario RPG bosses, but back to this video. There are Shy Moors, basically just regular Shy Guys riding swords. I'm convinced every Mario RPG has to include some kind of weird Shy Guy variant. It's practically tradition at this point. If there's ever a Mario RPG without a new Shy Guy type, it's not even a Mario RPG, is it? Then we have Rat Funks. Shockingly, they're not disco rats, but just normal sewer rats who wear gloves. Why gloves? Because they're germaphobes. They mostly act as sewer obstacles and are super easy to defeat. You'll also find a few more spooky enemies down in the Kuro sewers, like the Hobgoblin, no, not that one, and the Shadow, nope, definitely not that one. They're both undead enemies you can wipe out easily with pure water. They'll try to scare you, and maybe that worked for kids back in the 90s on a flickering CRT, but I don't know, I wasn't born for a couple years after the 90s had already ended. Lastly, for the Kuro sewers, we have Hawuts. That's not a question, that's their name. These guys have 300 HP and honestly remind me of that one weird enemy from Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. I picture them being the type of enemy who forgot why they were fighting you halfway through the battle for some reason. Leaving the sewers behind, we head to Roseway, home to a mix of unique enemies and more standard ones. First up is the Star Slap, a pink starfish with a charming design. Its top peak in the Switch version reads, "Wish people would stop confusing me with my cousin." Maybe that's a Patrick Star reference, because let's be honest, how many pink starfish do you really know? I'm not sure if this was in the SNES original, it might have been a later edition, but either way, let me believe this. Snapdragons, crooks, and arachnes also roam here. These guys look like your typical Mario RPG enemies, like nothing too wild. The arachne in particular feels kind of like an early version of the Scuttlebug. Of these three though, the Snapdragon is the toughest to take down, with its tricky moveset and higher health. Crooks are interesting too, they're like the low-level mobsters of the Mario world. Wario should definitely hire them for his next 3D game, which I feel like is due to happen on the Switch too. Now here's where Nintendo's creativity really started to kick in. The Gorilla and Chain Kong are Donkey Kong lookalikes in chains, sporting spiky crowns, and I won't even begin to guess what the backstory of this is. But their thought peak says, "I'm a work of fiction, any resemblance to pre-existing apes is purely coincidental." Yeah, sure. Definitely no resemblance to anyone we know. Honestly, if they brought these guys back as secret bosses in a Donkey Kong game, I wouldn't be mad at all. By the time this video comes out, Bonanza may even be out, so maybe I'll get 100 comments telling me how they did come back. Then there's the Amanita, or however it's pronounced, a mushroom enemy that can turn your party members into mushrooms, a status effect that is super annoying. Usually red mushrooms are a power-up in Mario, but here? Yeah, it's the complete opposite. It's almost poetic, like how you've been collecting this for years to give you a power-up and now it just betrays you. Octolot is another oddball. This enemy uses flying red shells to hover, kinda like it's trying to be a paratroopa, but the wings on the shells are black, unlike the paratroopa's white wings. Where did these wings come from? Dark magic? Maybe he's just emo? I have no idea. Buzzers are Super Mario RPG's obligatory bee enemies, similar to the Bazaps I covered in my previous video. Nothing too fancy, but they get the job done. Every RPG in the Mario series seemingly needs a bee enemy. After surviving the forest maze, which has some great music, you end up in the mole mines where you'll face magmites, enigmas, and clusters. Magmites remind me of buzzy beetles with the rocky shells instead of smooth ones. They're like if you left a buzzy beetle in the dryer for too long. Clusters are supposed to be stalactites, I think. And enigmas, I have no clue. They look like Lovecraftian pig monsters with wings. Yeah, this was not my favorite part of the game. The mines are just crawling with bombs, and I try to avoid fights whenever possible, but at least the enemy designs tried to stay interesting. Heading into Booster Path and Booster Tower, things start to get weirder. There's the Spikester, a cousin of the Spiky, and the Artichoker, yep, an artichoke enemy, and somehow this vegetable has a ton of HP, which is just extremely unexpected. First the Amanita, now this. I don't know what obsession Nintendo had with produce in this era, and then you think you're done with vegetable enemies, and then you know what? Meet the Caraboscus, an evil carrot who looks like he was rejected from VeggieTales. You'll also meet the Robomb, a more powerful version of the Bomb. Does this mean Bombs are canonically named Robert, but some go by Bob and some go by Rob? We'll have to see. To wrap up Booster Tower, we have the Jester and Daleks. The Jester wears this creepy mask, while the Daleks is a marionette with big black eyes and a hammer. I hate to admit this, but when I first saw Daleks, my brain instantly went to Tung 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 Sahur. If you know, you know. Just please tell me I'm not alone on that. But anyway, the Jester's unsettling design almost makes you think you wandered into a rejected Kirby final boss fight. Next stop is Star Hill, which is a really interesting area in the game. This area introduces Throfer, Gecko, Mastadoom, Pulsar, and Sackett. None of them are massive, but they're just weird enough to stand out. Throfer is a gopher who throws things. Get it? Mastadoom is like a mastodon but with doom. Sackett carries a sack, and Gecko, well, yeah, I don't think you need me to explain that. Not exactly groundbreaking stuff, but it gives the area personality. I feel like these guys would make great background cameos in a Smash Bros. Stage. From the sky to the sea, we dive into the Sunken ship. This is where the enemy designs really embrace some nautical nonsense. Zero Stars are a new enemy, and their thought peak says, "Can you believe I got confused with those no-good star slaps?" So that's what the earlier reference was about. Sadly, no Patrick Star connection here, but it does add some lore. Maybe the Star Slap and Zeo Star families have some unresolved drama. Krusties and Lucos are your crab and jellyfish enemies. Lucos in particular have way more health than they deserve, but I can't hate them, just look at their designs. I mean, who doesn't love an overpowered jellyfish in a Mario RPG? On the spooky side, we have Greepers, Strawheads, and Reachers. Greepers are basically Shy Guys mixed with the Grim Reaper. Strawheads annoyed me the most since they constantly transform you into mushrooms or scarecrows, and then you're just stuck there contemplating why you had to fight this guy. Reachers are skeletons who just chuck giant bones at you, and honestly, the Sunken Ship has some of the best themed enemies in the game. Finishing off the Sunken Ship, we encounter Alley-Rats, Wahos, and Enigmax. Basically stronger versions of enemies we've already discussed. Moving on to Land's End, you'll find a mix of new enemies and variants. Chows, Octovaders, Chewy, Spintheras, Stingers, Fink Flowers, and Ribites are the variants here. Then there are Bezos, who originally appeared in Super Mario Bros. 2, which I didn't even remember, and the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, which for some reason I feel like I remember that. I don't know why. To my knowledge, they haven't shown up in a new game since Super Mario RPG, and I wonder why. Maybe their name is too close to a certain billionaires. The fully new enemies here include Formless, who lives up to their name because you can't see them, they don't take any form. Gas Oxes, which are smiling green clouds with way too much HP, and Shoguns, ants dressed as samurais. This is peak Super Mario RPG, and the Shoguns deserve to be in more games. Past Land's End is Monster Town, a peaceful village where the monsters have reformed. No enemies here. Well, not exactly. There is a secret boss here who feels wildly out of place for a Mario game, but I'll save that for another video. The only two new non-bosses here are the Placino, which has 900 HP, yeah, that's correct, and Ginny, who is a genie. Ginny's thought peak reads, "It was caught cheating at treasure chest slots and confined inside Placino as punishment, or just being forced to clean. Harsh, but fair, I guess? Imagine being sentenced to eternal janitorial duty because you couldn't play fair at slots." On that note, let's make like Jack and climb the beanstalk, and yes, I did write that line. Birdie is a standard enemy holding a spear. Then we have the big Troopas, massive Koopa Troopas, who've become a fan favorite over the years. We've had similar characters since, but not quite like these guys. Just look at these designs and try not to smile. Nimbus Castle introduces several more enemies. Orbison, an orb probably named after Roy Orbison, who made the song Pretty Woman. Pinwheels, who I'm shocked haven't returned in later games. Muckles, who are just stronger Lucos. And Jawful, the first Mario RPG enemy whose name rhymes with awful. Also, just look at this guy. He's peak Mario RPG enemy design. Shamans are mystical Merlin types that sometimes help you, sometimes sell you stuff, and sometimes attack you. While Bluebirds round out the roster as tougher bird enemies. Honestly, the Bluebirds feel like they'd be right at home in a Paper Mario game. Deep underground, we faced another wave of variants, Magnus, Armordance, Vomers, who I don't think you can defeat permanently, and Earthspikes. The two big newcomers here are Stomp Pillars, who are giant stone pillars, and Stumpets, who are intimidating and pack 500 HP. I still have no idea how jumping on a stone pillar hurts it, but video game logic, I guess. Towards the end, most of the new enemies are bosses, but a few stray foes remain. Terracotta, which, creative name, is a stronger Terrapin you'll fight repeatedly in certain doors. Honestly, it gets old fast, and I just didn't want to do the fights when you had to do like 4 out of the 6 doors. Then there's the Pro Goomba, a green Goomba, and I don't know what makes him pro. Star Crushers, Forky, no, not that Forky. Malakoopas, Glum Reapers, Grand Koopas, Big Blasters, and Komion are just more variants. And I think the Komion is supposed to be pronounced like come on, but I have no idea. Then we have Bahamut, who technically isn't a boss. He's a red dragon with a great design. I think Nintendo should bring him back in some capacity. He'd fit right into a Bowser's Fury DLC. Finally, we reach Weapon World. Here you'll find the Amiiboid, a Goomba Amiibo hybrid that's surprisingly strong, Hippopo, a hippo-like enemy keeping with the industrial theme, and a slew of other foes. We have Jabbit, Mad Mallet, Pounder, Poundette, Springer, Puppix, Haibu, no clue why he's high, but that's his name, Doppel, and Ninja. No, not that Ninja. Every single one of these just makes the game feel more unique, like they're not using the same recycled enemies all over again. And that's pretty much it. Super Mario RPG's enemy roster is one of the best in the entire series, and while newer Mario RPGs don't have as many unique enemies, we did just get a fully remade Super Mario RPG remake, which forced Nintendo to make modernized versions of these enemies. So who knows, maybe they'll make a sequel with even more fun enemy designs. Anyways, be sure to subscribe, like, and check out my Paper Mario enemies video here. Also join my Discord as I'm trying to build a community over there. Thank you for watching Domainy, and I'll see you next time.